The GM of Wellington Rape Crisis. Down the line is Kyla Rayner.
From Toronto is Richard Cooper, a podcaster and the author of the Unplugged Alpha.
Firstly, thank you so much, all of you, for joining us on this conversation on the elephant. We really appreciate you all being here. Richard, can I start with you? So your work leans heavily on the red pill perspective. Can you give us a short idea of what that is?
Well, a number of years ago, I wrote a book called The Unplugged Alpha. I spent a good deal of my life going through it, essentially sleepwalking, not getting the results that I wanted, and began to essentially, more or less by accident, document it on a YouTube channel, which blew up. I've amassed about 1 billion views plus now, and people seem to get a lot of value out of it. So that's where I started from.
So the red pill perspective, that's borrowed from the Matrix. So the red pill is like an awakening to reality?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of pill colors. They tend to get abused by a lot of people. To me, it's what works and what doesn't work. You can call it red pill, sure.
Okay, so you argue that many modern men are plugged into a societal system that rewards weakness and punishes masculine traits. Would you say that men are in crisis?
Men are definitely in crisis. They're not getting what they want out of life, and neither are women today, because men are softer, weaker. They're very compliant and agreeable. And none of that really gets them to where they want to be in life when it comes to relationships with women, in their career, with wealth, with the people that they surround themselves with the things that they like to do and enjoy. They're softer, weaker versions of our grandparents' versions, if I can put it that way.
Do you reckon men are in crisis, Richie?
Yeah, I do. I think perhaps we might be talking at cross purposes, Richard and I. But if you look at the data, boys and men die by suicide at exceptionally high rates, end up in prison, exceptionally high rates, die by what are called diseases of despair. So you think addiction, substance abuse, boys and men are failing in education. I don't think it's because they're weaker or have abandoned traditional notions of masculinity, though. I think there are a whole range of different socio-ecological causatives for that. And it's not because we're not hard enough anymore.
Okay. Do you think men are softer, Kyla?
I think that these labels and these terminologies are really difficult. And like Richard's saying about the pills, they get really misused. I agree that we're all in crisis. You know, doing the work that I'm doing at Rape Crisis and having worked in that interpersonal violence space for about 15 years, we know here in Aotearoa that we have totally unacceptable prevalence rates for men, for women, boys, girls, disabled people, rainbow peoples. And so I'm really interested in the solutions that help us consider what is healthy and safe masculinity that ensure that people aren't harmed by some of these ideas and attitudes that seem to have kind of a growing interest, particularly in those digital spaces.
Mm. So you're the GM of Wellington Rape Crisis, Kyla. Would you say that we live in a rape culture?
Yeah, I would. I think that we know that the prevalence data here is really high. 1 in 6 women, 1 in 8 boys. And we know that it's really hard to get accurate reporting data because of those societal stigmas and barriers that still don't enable people to come forward for support. So it's really difficult to think about weakness because is that in opposition, is that in opposition to violence? That's a really harmful attitude to hold and harms all of us, actually.
Richard, what are your thoughts on that?
I've heard this notion of rape being a tremendous problem these days. And I don't know that it is as it's being spoken about. I'll share a private conversation that I had with a police officer that was 25 years on the force, and his entire job was investigating rapes, essentially. And when each investigation was concluded, he found that about 85% of them were false. And the vast majority of them that were reported to the police were used to cover up cheating by women that had stepped out on their marriage or on their relationship with their man to essentially put it out there that I didn't consent to this. Like, they had buyer's remorse. So I think that the notion that it's prevalent and that women are being abused in record numbers today, I'm sure it's happening, but is it happening in the numbers that exist as it's being spoken about? I don't see it from the people that are investigating this stuff, and that's more than one police officer that have spoken.
Respectfully, that's one anecdote which doesn't discount the data. Like, statistically, false reports do occur, but it's something about 2 to 5%, depending on the data that you read. Like,
Not according to the police officer that I spoke to. He said about 85%
yeah, but
of the cases that
that's
he
one.
investigated
Yeah,
were all
but one
false.
police officer's account doesn't discount the meta-analysis.
No, I've had
the
multiple
research.
conversations with different police officers from around the world. This particular guy worked in Oslo, and there's several that I've spoken to in North America, and they all recount roughly the same numbers.
I definitely rebuke and totally don't accept any of those claims at all. I mean, what I've also just talked about is that actually only 10% of people report to police. So getting the lens of a police officer who is seeing an insignificant amount of the claims is just not real. This is an incredibly tough and traumatizing process for people to go through. And just in my own little service alone, these are huge numbers that are totally unacceptable. So if we're going to talk about men's mental health or men being in crisis, that's an incredibly valid conversation to have. But all of these other kind of comments around rape myths and people lying about that harm is a distraction and distracting us from what are the underlying problems that are causing men and boys to feel disengaged, for them to think that they are entitled to actually take that pain and turn that pain towards harming other people.
Yeah, how do you toughen up or harden up, Richard, without that spilling over into something dangerous?
Well, you can't have tough men that aren't dangerous. What society wants, what women want in particular from men, is they want a dangerous man that can control it, right? I think that men can toughen up by getting involved in things like combat sports. I've got a number of friends of mine that are ex-MMA fighters that are very good men. And a lot of that came from getting punched in the face at a young age and learning what combat's all about. You can't call yourself peaceful if you don't have the capacity for violence, if I can put it that way.
Got you. Richie can answer you. I just want to quickly come back though. Women want a dangerous man. Can you just explain that?
All right, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed that clip. If you want to check out the full-length podcast episode, you can find that right over here. Also, make sure you visit my website over here where you'll find my supplements, the opportunity to book me privately one-on-one for coaching, and most importantly, my new School of Unplugging, which you'll find on the courses tab. Newer to the channel, hit subscribe.